So I heard to succeed in one-on-one dating that you got to share stories about who you are and what you do. But what kind of stories in specific should be shared? Stories I had from my childhood, high school days, or stories about my passion for working out? What's the catch? This is not going to be the easy answer, but all of them. Stories are stories. If they're good, if they're personal, if they mean something to you, if they made a difference, if they have a punchline, if they are show your qualities, if they show how you shaped you, they are all potentially good. So I wouldn't look at it as like, what stage of my life should I share stories, or like, should they be about work or whatever? A good story can be about anything. I mean, you hear great orators and TED talkers talk about childhood stories leading up to their big reveal, or you talk about like going to an entrepreneurial forum and meeting somebody, and they're all interesting. I think what matters most about storytelling is that you can paint a picture with some visual descriptions or adjectives or something like that to just give, more than just the facts and data. Like when I was a kid, I was on a swing set, I swung and fell off. Okay, just a bunch of like cold hard data doesn't make it interesting. But if you could paint a picture with some visuals, like, yeah, I remember like just being super hyped up and seeing the swing set and like running over. And when you're a kid, you just like jump in and you start going and like, you're kicking your feet really high. Okay, whatever. That's what makes a story interesting, is the visuals where somebody can put themselves back into that moment with you. That's number one. And number two is to talk about the emotions around that experience, if possible, and not just the facts. Again, the swing set story that you swung on a swing set and fell off when you were 6 is not that interesting. But like the emotion of like, as you got higher and higher and you could feel your heart racing and you're like, I'm going to do this jump. I'm a boss, right? And kind of relating the emotions you felt helps somebody connect to those same emotions, and they can combine the visuals with the emotions of like, okay, I'm imagining myself when I was a kid in the swing set and how scary it was when you used to get really high. And then you're like, and then I remember launching into the air and I'm just like, diving and like my heart's racing and I feel like a daredevil, and they're there with you, right? You share those emotions, those visuals, they're there, and they can put themselves into a related experience even that they've went through. That's what I think is more important. And when you do that naturally, when you feel the moment of what, put yourself back into there, you start to get more animated. Right? Your eyes light up. We have all these micro expressions in our face. Our hands get animated. Like me, I'm like talking all the time like I make a pizza, man. It's my Greek in me, okay? But naturally, when you connect back to that moment and you're feeling it and you're sharing it, you're going to be expressive. Your voice is going to raise. You're going to get animated. You're going to get dynamic. That's what makes a great story, rather than the context of, does it have to be about friends? Does it have to be about work? Does it have to be about childhood? That's the most important thing. And then usually there's a payoff. I won't get too much into this, but look up the 3-act story, right? Every story generally has 3 acts, kind of the build up, the conflict, and then the resolve. And that's kind of when you want to frame it, even if it's a short story, is like to put somebody through the journey. Like, here's what's starting to happen to me. Here's a moment of real tension or fun or something really happening that's, kind of the crescendo or the climax. And then the resolve is what you learned from it, a punchline, some self-reflection, some lesson it taught you, so that they can connect to, why did this person share the story in the first place? If you just say like, I jumped on a swing set and I fell off, all right, cool. But if you're like, I realized that day, like I was always going to be a risk taker, and, I still to this day do stupid shit and get myself injured, then they laugh and there's a payoff to that story. So you said, so it's like talking about the emotions I felt in any story, and stories that mean the most to me and taught me the most. Absolutely. And also stories that made you laugh the most, or stories that just left an impression on you, things that you think about in your life over and over and over, and they remind you of something. Because if you feel connected to it, then naturally you're going to share it with more emotion. And that's what really makes a big part of that story, is everyone's had experiences in their life. They want to know why it mattered to you, why you care about it, why it's so funny, how it moved you. And that's what's going to make it stick in their head. And that's not just for sharing stories with a woman. Storytelling is the oldest art form we have. right? It's like what people did around the campfire for thousands of years or around the fire and how we bonded. So I absolutely think it's essential. I think it's a great skill to have. And I think it's more so about the visuals, the emotion, and making sure that it has some payoff to you that they can connect to. Yes, and that definitely applies to online profiles in the bio too, but you just have to keep it short, like 1 or 2 sentences. I went to this theme park back in the day, and I went on the water slide and I got launched off, and now I have a fear of theme parks for the rest of my life. Something like that. Okay. But it still has a little bit of visuals, or like I went to this theme park. I remember sliding down, getting launched 50 feet into the air. And to this day, I still shit my pants thinking about water slides. And I think storytelling is quite underrated. I know a lot of people talk about it, but I hear when a lot of men talk, they don't really talk about stories. They talk about ideas. And it's good. And even in my own practice, when I coach people or write articles, it's something I've tried to get much, much better at, is people don't remember facts, man. I mean, they do a little bit, but you connect it to a story, they'll always remember it. I remember stories people told me and things that happened to them, like from 20 years ago. But a random fact about something that somebody told me might slip me if it's not connected to something.